Peterbot and Polarized going head to head. But the way the map works is there is an aim course, an edit course, realistic 1v1s, box fight 1v1s, and zone wars 1v1s. Every single event they win is 1 point. Best of 5 wins. This one's weird because it's got some mad weird.
Hold on, okay.
So where did you learn to make a French omelet?
What it do, Ken, folks? It's your boy Elaine back with another episode.
His wife loved French omelets, so
But
being
yeah,
able to make some French omelets,
today
having them
I
just enjoy and just enjoy being a retailer.
I am working on the 1v1 in my game. If you haven't been watching me stream, you probably haven't caught on to what I completed last night. Alright, got my screen, my load, everything, all my buttons pretty much working. Saved the game, saved, and load the game. The game is loading. Now it's going to start me at what? Probably my first. Oh yeah, I have to put my level. What level it is. I'm gonna put that. I'm trying not to put so much on the screen. Might just have to go under here. I have to extend this box a little bit more. That's a lot. It's my leg. Alright, got my health. These will be sprites. I'm just, testing collision, making sure he don't walk through stuff, making sure these restart. I need more ammo if I need it. Some armor, easy, I just change a few colors just to help me know what the stuff is. And I can probably, get up out of there. Got my die screen. Restart, main menu, restart it, right? Show you if I win. Let's get in the game then, let's go. What are you talking about? We're back in the game. I think sound is gonna be the hardest to capture, I would say. I wouldn't say capture, but make sound great for the game. So I'm not gonna save it for last. I'm gonna try to work on some of it today. At least try to, see what things I need sound for. Skills. Hit the dead. Back. Got it. That's how you get one. And go ahead and heal up. Before these niggas kill up. You know what I mean? level of them coming down together. Let him kill me real fast. And also, I got my pause button. You know, I can pause it. I can just, you know, I can save that. I can go ahead and just load it. And we right back where we were, you know, same level. That's why I gotta do my level knowledge. Show what the level is. I might have to put it under money. So it'll be so, you know, so much up here. Yeah. What? My credits. My settings. What? It's not working? Hold on. Gotta make sure that's working. Alright. Okay, so make sure the menu scenes. So that's the dealio. Dealio. What you just do, AI? You just forgot. My nigga. Alright, so hey, I just forgot. What we just created, cuz? After all that, cuz? about to start taking pictures. See, that's why I gotta use my phone with AI. This nigga don't be seeing what he did. Come on, AI, man. My script. Create the edit the names. This nigga forgot what I wanted to do. Nigga just forget what I wanted to do. Shit, nigga. See if I can change the name here. God damn it. Shoot down. What's my name? Rolling on the river. Rolling. Might as well change what credits to menu to menu. But AI probably right though, you know what I mean? I was really like labeling everything correctly. I can, you know. Let me see, let me run it. Let me see. Let me Chris Brown run it. Alright. Come on, my nigga. Okay, let me
I've gone through a ton. My nephew Wyatt. He was born without his pulmonary artery and a hole in his heart, and he's gone through 4 open heart surgeries in 3 years. Part of the reason I moved back home to Akron is to be closer to them. And
so this is a dish. It's an emotional connection for you.
yeah,
I'm feeling that. I gotta tell you, this is straight up delicious. It's an umami bomb. The tang of the goat cheese, the strength. Sometimes people win for what they don't, but this is a case study in the strength, and this was hard.
thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Now it's time for our judges.
It's time for a nigga to go home.
Yeah, I mean,
That's how I've been translate this video like
The
that.
judges' critique definitely helped me as a whole.
And they ain't got no sympathy for these stuff. Like, that's time for you to go.
9, 10, 12, 13, 14. It's so hard. It breaks my heart.
The
Alright, nigga
judges
set his
have reached a
menu.
decision. We already have 5 eliminations, which means we need to get 10 more. And the 10
Shit's still
cooks
saying
who are
settings.
being eliminated are 32. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. 70.
Yeah, damn, I can't see, but I got to type in.
41.
Cook the worst omelet of all off the 2 best cooks in America.
51. 40.
Yeah, fuck me up, yeah.
90. And the
Nigga.
final leaving is
I'm terrified. I'm not ready to go home.
Yeah, totally forgot what we
the
created.
last cook who is being eliminated is number 94.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you. I'm sad to be going home, but this was not something I would have ever thought that I would get to experience.
That was a tough one. Let's take a look at the cookboard. You 15 have made the cut. And you get to stay in the competition.
Full body relief. Feel like, okay, I made it. I survived another day.
So everyone can go back up to your seat except for cook 96 and 55. You 2 cooks were the top cooks of this round. There was one cook whose egg dish was so perfect that the judges awarded it best egg dish, and that cook is 96.
You can make some eggs, man. Nah, I think he can cook.
You alone have earned
He think.
immunity for the rest of the night.
I did not think that I would get best dish, especially going against 29 other people. If I won on this dish and I don't even like eggs, there's no telling what I can do next.
42 cooks have competed and 23 have departed. And we've only just begun. So, are you ready for the last challenge of the night? Let's mix it up! Yeah! First, the challenge. Roll it. Party bite. Ooh, something that's appropriate for a cocktail
Team
party
better.
and will keep the guests coming back for more. For this challenge, 6 of you will compete. Roll it. Cook 44. Cook 38.
I host all the cocktail parties. My house is literally the cocktail party land.
Cook 56. Good to see you again. Cook 22.
Oh my gosh, my dad was just called.
Cook number 93. Where are you?
Having my number called twice in one day is brutal. Don't get me wrong, I love to cook. I'm excited. It's what I came here to do, but the odds of surviving 2 challenges back to back are daunting.
You have 30 minutes to make our judges your party bite. The 3 cooks whose bites are the hit of the party will stay in the running for the grand prize. The other 3 cooks will be leaving early. Start cooking!
Where are olives?
I knew my time was coming, so it's just a matter of trying to be prepared. But in reality, you can never be prepared. Get down there, and it's all the lights on, and it's time to go. Pressure makes diamonds, or bust pipe. I didn't want to be a busted pipe.
Behind.
Cocktail party, which means slightly upscale, small, easy bites that aren't going to get messy.
Yes. Part of this challenge is if you're a great home cook, can you make me one great bite of food that's hard?
Hi.
Hi there, how you doing, sir?
What are you making?
I am making a mascarpone, brie, and cranberry flatbread
Ooh,
with
hungry.
rosemary.
I heard you got a pretty cool job. What do you do?
Well, I was a CIA officer for many years. Yeah.
Really?
I was undercover. I'm no longer.
We got a CIA agent on this show.
You're giving my secrets away.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were. Okay, you might go
I'm
back
down
in.
for
So
less.
I'm sorry. I
I'm
know.
down for less.
Okay, I'm
Cooking is such a creative outlet, especially when you're in a high stakes job.
When I host, I know what I want to look like aesthetically. I'm big on aesthetics. All right, let's get all these little bad girls in line.
Is that duck breast? Because that is so cool.
Oh, it's amazing. The tricky part about both of
Isn't it cooking
minutes.
that fat?
In 30 minutes, you can render it on that fat film. What I like is it's getting on it immediately.
What are you making right now?
So I'm gonna do a Dr. Crepini with a little cherry compote, cherry red wine, thyme, and a little one-bite cocktail.
I love this.
The nerves never go away when your number gets pulled again. The first cook with the egg, I made a French omelet, and to me it seemed a little safe, so I wanted to do something that's taking a bigger risk.
I'm hungry now. I'm hungry.
That's good. That's a good thing.
I love having my daughter watch me cook. The rest of the crowd makes me nervous.
Sophia, hi. How you doing? I want to talk to you for a second. How are you? Oh, nice to see you from Wisconsin. Oh, nice to see you. You are here for your dad, and you are here to see too. Do you guys ever cook together?
All the time. So me and my dad, like my earliest memories cooking are with him. He taught me how to make homemade pizza dough, homemade pasta. We pick something and we make it together. And it's how we bond, and it's always been our thing.
Yeah.
Being here together is so special.
Gold Peak tea is brewed from real tea leaves, grown in a real tea field, under a real sun, which is real hot.
I just got my first online sale, and it's the best feeling in the world. Big Cartel just made sense. It's an independent e-commerce.
What do you think he's going to make?
I have a feeling Sam grabbed lemons and Sam grabbed garbanzo beans, and he makes the best hummus. I think he's gonna make homemade hummus tonight,
Ooh,
and
that
it's
sounds
killer.
good.
Yes,
Listen, hummus would work at a party.
100%.
I love garbanzo beans. What are you making?
Hummus with some
Garbanzo
vegetables.
beans.
Enjoy.
Like a little frite and hummus on the side?
Maybe some toast as well.
Okay. Does your daughter like this? Or is she gonna be like, Dad, why did you make that?
She loves it, actually. I'm from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and in Wisconsin, a cocktail party is typically going to involve more food than many people would have at a full sit-down meal. I'm going to jazz up the hummus with turmeric and olive oil and a lot of garlic. My love of cooking was amplified by the fact that Sophia loves to cook with me. Growing up, we started cooking together and I loved
Hello? 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 Yeah, man. I'll probably better go back.
Ever since, we'll sometimes cook until late into the evening when all of our family members have gone to bed. My heart is in cooking with her.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? I don't know. Your phone not working. Just let him leave a message, okay? What I do? What's up, son? screen, ball screen, credit screen.
It's nighttime and we're in the parking lot. There's so many stores. Wow, look at this store. It's the Kinderland Indoor Playground in Las Vegas, Nevada. Come on. Wow, this place is so colorful. Before we play, we need to take off our shoes. Drink, one shoe, two shoes. Now we're ready to play. Whoa, look at this. Hello. So much to learn about. It'll make you want to shout with me. Hey, it's me, Flippy, and look at what I'm at. Today I'm at. So much to learn about. It'll make you want to shout with me. Oh, hey, it's me, Flippy, and today I'm at the Jumping Beans Indoor Play Space in Bellevue, Redmond, Washington. And this is gonna be fun. Whoa. Whoa.
What's up, homeboy? Whippy! You gotta just cover all these ass. My dog.
Good job.
Good job. Good job. You want that?
Wow.
This place is
It's a kitty tigger.
You heard me? Turn my motherfucking mic on. I ain't even motherfucking lights on. Some motherfucking python. You know what? Time for y'all niggas to sit. Big ass house on with bullshit. So let's talk truck and ain't rich. Make that song yeah. It's Church Junior, bitch. Pops, let me go ahead and get it one time, you heard me? Hold up. Turn my motherfucking mic on, and I ain't even to the motherfucking lights on. This ain't a dick, this a motherfucking python. And if it's wall, call me fuck Tyrone. You know what? It's time for y'all niggas to see. Big ass house, no room for bullshit. Such and such told me, Chuck, you ain't rich. But that's such niggas suck my dick. For no fucking reason. Hey, minstrel, sucker, fucking throw a bleaching. Bitch, we breathe these 5 stars. You can come get fucked by 5 stars. Look at that raw room. Now there's a motherfucking Superdome. You know fucking soon let me have the leash. 2 fingers in that pussy, then I tell that pussy please. Hey, check it. Ain't that the shit was over. Got paid by like a fucking school order. If the ass, put the lawnmower. Tell them bitches leave the game. I mean the same. At the beach, fucking name. Pussy niggas just about 2 seconds. I like that. Now every time I hit start, kicking girls out the condo.
I would trade all the other software.
Yeah, if I turn my mic out now.
One month ago, I released my first game on Steam. After 18 months of work, and 1 month ago, I released my first game on Steam. After 18 months of work and 20,000 wishlists, I thought I knew what to expect from launch day, but I was wrong. In this video, I'll show you exactly how the launch went, how much the game earned, and the lessons I learned from my first Steam release. Hi, I'm Julian, solo dev at Rabbit Game, and welcome to the story of my first Steam launch. October 2024. After making the hard decision to abandon my first Unity project, which was way too ambitious, it was a PvP game, I think that's enough to explain it, I came up with this idea of a 2D side-scroller inspired by the Kingdom series, but where the player could fight back. There seemed to be an audience for it, and very few games in the genre. Apart from Until We Die, I couldn't find many similar games, and I thought my take would feel different enough to stand out in its own. So I started developing the game. March 2025. 6 months after starting development, I had enough visuals to put together a trailer and prepare a Steam page. The reveal trailer did okay, I guess, on my YouTube channel. It reached 3,000 views a few days later. And the trailer also got picked up by a Japanese gaming outlet. All in all, the reveal marketing beat got me 800 wishlists, which I was really happy with at the time. And 6 months later, a demo was ready. March 2025. I won't go too much into details on how the demo went, since I had a whole video covering this topic, but all in all, it was a wild ride. The demo launched with a new trailer, and at first, nothing happened. Almost no one covered it, despite me reaching out to dozens of YouTubers on screen. But after a few days, things started moving. Small and medium-sized creators started releasing their videos, which encouraged me to contact even more creators. Eventually, even Cat ended up covering the demo, which felt like a huge achievement. The demo ended up in the free and trending carousel on Steam. I had successfully managed to trigger the Steam algorithm. The whole demo marketing beat brought me around 8,000 wishlists. It basically multiplied my amount of wishlists by 10 in 1 month and a half. The increased visibility also attracted publishers. At first, I wasn't too keen on sharing revenue. I had managed to build momentum on my own with no budget, so why wouldn't I keep going on my own? Still, I decided to take a pause. Amongst the publishers that reached out, Slug Disco stood out. Working with a small team felt like a better fit for me, and more importantly, they would handle the marketing side while I could focus on development. I had spent way too much time building trailers and reaching out to streamers, and that's not really what I enjoy doing. I enjoy building games, and the more time I spend doing that, the better. February 2026. The demo had been out for 9 months, with only organic visibility on Steam and a few devlog videos on my channel. Wishlists had grown from 8,000 to 14,000. At this point, we were close to finishing the game, but there was one issue that kept bothering us. The demo was actually quite different from the full game. Players were enjoying the infinite run experience of the demo, but we were worried that they wouldn't enjoy the campaign structure of the full game. So we decided to rebuild the demo to better represent the actual game. This meant reworking it from the ground up, discarding most of what I had worked to separate the demo from the full game, and aligning it with the final progression system. And this was a great opportunity to align it with Team NextFest. The publishing team reached out to creators again, and around $5,000 were spent on Reddit ads. Combined with NextFest, this pushed us around 21,000 wishlists, with 7,000 new wishlists in a single month. That put us above our first goal, 20,000 wishlists. This was just to secure us a spot in the popular upcoming carousel. The next target was reaching new and trending at launch. That one was much less predictable, depending heavily on the first day's sales. We were about 1 month and a half from release. At this point, we also started sending out playtest keys to longtime members of the Discord server. Around 10 testers joined in, and maybe half of them finished the campaign. They helped us find bugs and improve balance, which was extremely valuable feedback. You can actually find them in the game credits. They absolutely deserve it. Here we are. It's the big month. Release date is planned on the 17th.
The announcement trailer on socials didn't perform that well. It did get picked up by the Game Changers channel and reached around 3,000 views there.
Yeah, last time I did it.
I also released a devlog focused on sound effects and music, but that one didn't really perform. All in all, the 2 weeks before release were sitting at around 150 wishlists per day, and everything was set up for launch. The game was accepted in 2 Steam festivals, London Games Fest and Earth Appreciation Festival. Another ad budget was planned for launch, with around $5,000 for Reddit and $1,000 for Meta. Keys had been sent to YouTubers and streamers with no embargo whatsoever, and a launch trailer was planned to live on release day. The days before launch were strange. The game was done, so there wasn't much left to do on my side. Then, on April 16th, one day before launch, I saw the game appear in the popular upcoming carousel. That day alone got around 1,000 new wishlists. April 17th was a Friday. We stayed in popular upcoming right up until launch, which was set for 6 p.m. The hours before launch felt extremely long. Just waiting, sitting at the computer, checking the numbers over and over. 6 p.m., I pressed the button. And nothing happened. There's always a delay before the first data starts coming in, so my partner and I grabbed a beer and we went outside to celebrate. On launch day, we ended up with almost 3,000 new wishlists. But that wasn't only because of popular upcoming. A few hours after launch, we realized we were in the new and trending carousel. That felt huge. I'm a big Steam user myself, and seeing my game there felt extremely rewarding. I was proud, excited, relieved, and also quite stressed. Because then came an issue. After about an hour from launch, a message from the publishing team. Did you change anything with the sound when creatures get hit? It sounds a bit jarring. It took me a few seconds to realize what was wrong, and then I remembered. In the devlog I edited a few days earlier, the one about sound effects and music, I had boosted the volume of creature hit effects by ×5 so they would be clearer on the video. Bullet impacts. I'm using different sounds for flesh or mechanical enemies, and I never reverted it. Fixing something like that 1 hour after launch when traffic is high is probably one of the most stressful experiences in my life. Even though the version control diff showed a single line change, I was still afraid of breaking something else. The build took about 10 minutes, but it felt like a whole hour. And then I pushed the update. A few hours later, the first reviews came in, and they were pretty positive. I went to sleep relieved. I didn't check the sales yet. I wanted the numbers to stay.
Hello, this is
I had
Chauncey.
no idea what to expect, and
the phone call.
that was honestly better. The next day, the game was still at the top of new and trending. We hit over 50 reviews with more than 80% positive rating, so that gave us a very positive rating. But the forums were starting to explode with bug reports and optimization issues. This is where we realized we hadn't been
Get a Planet Fitness black card for $1 down, $24.99 a month.
Several thousand reveals problems you never encountered before. And some of those problems got serious enough to further reduce score if we didn't act quickly. So I spent the whole Saturday working on a patch which we uploaded at 4 p.m. 2 hours later, new posts started appearing. Something was wrong in the new build. Black screen issues. And this time, this cost us 2 million reviews. Loading between the hub and levels was causing traffic. That's when things got really messy. We put another emergency fix, which unfortunately it only affected a small number of players between updates, but still. That night, I went to sleep with almost 10,000 new wish lists in a single day. Sunday morning, more major bugs. Many players reaching later stages of the game with more features on screen, optimization issues too. The review score was still above 80%, but we knew that if we didn't react fast, this wouldn't hold. So I worked the whole day on the repatch workload around 6 p.m. We tested more carefully this time, and there were no major issues to report at first. I went to bed at 82%, and I woke up at 72%, mostly positive. Monday morning at 7 a.m., I went panic mode. We had introduced a new issue. Sometimes creatures were ignoring completely the barricades and running straight towards the fire. This came from the optimization changes. So we immediately rolled back to a previous version while I was fixing this properly. Meanwhile, we were still at the top of new and trending. We had stayed there all weekend, mostly because there weren't any major new releases. The entire week was basically patching. One major update every day, fixing issues one by one. We think the review score drop definitely hurt momentum, and it took time to stabilize again. Eventually we recovered 80% positive rating, we stuff around. Today, it's at a stable 82%, which I'm really happy with. It's only on Tuesday, 4 days after launch, that we finally jumped up to new which I had a good rough day. And that's when I finally checked the sales. I had avoided watching them the whole time. I didn't want to know more than sales. During these 4 days, we were trending. We had sold around 6,300 copies, and gained 26,000 visitors. Literally doubling the amount of visitors we had bought. Now let's look at the numbers 1 month to 2 weeks. We sold around 8,400 copies. At a $2 price point with a 10% discount during the first 2 weeks, that brings us to around $139,000 in gross revenue. Now this is where things get a little bit less straightforward, because as you probably know, this is not money that goes straight in my bank account. From my gross revenue, we first have refunds, which account for around 15% of sales, VAT, and payment processing fees. Then there's team costs, which is 30%. Then there's marketing and localization costs, and all the production-related expenses. Then there's the cultural split, and finally, taxes on the company. Once everything is accounted for, the net amount is around $31,000. So yeah, going from 139,000 gross to 31,000 net is a big difference. But honestly, that's just how game sales work.
I'll take that, yeah.
And I don't really see it as a negative. The publisher helped a lot with the release, and most of these costs are just part of running a business. One quick extra note on the wish list. On the same amount of time in 1 month, we gained around 30,000 new wishes. So all in all, I'm extremely happy with how long it went. It was an exhausting period. But now things have calmed down, and we're getting...
I can get that 21 hour nigga better than that sour. Something sour, got that bitch up on a nigga like a flower. You already know me, I'm on it. Yeah, nigga better not chirp. So on the nigga with a nigga with a Glock there. Nigga better stop there. Hold on. Little bitty been popping. I've been leaning up on top. Around the shit, yeah, turn black like God.
It hasn't been a straight line. There were doubts,
You better cop.
Nigga,
I stop. Pull up. I bitch want to drop. Know how the shit go. Know how the shit go. Off the get go. Nigga better. Back on my old shit. Yeah, back on that pole. Yeah, back on that old shit. Yeah, smack on that old shit. Yeah, old shit. Yeah, she already knows shit. Yeah, she already knows it. Yeah, she want that nigga that.
If you bought the game, thank you so much. It really contributed to the success of this launch. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a new game to work on. See you in the next one.
Near your other. So what's the HUD? This is actually coded though. So I can copy and paste it, cuz. That's what I'm trying to do, man. Add name, add level name to King Street.
Hello everyone, my name's Dave Preston. I have been making a game by myself for over 7 years now. This isn't the first game that I've made a little games in the past, but this is the first PC game, and certainly the game I spent the most amount of time on. Now, Sapiens is a unique game. It's got quite a lot of new ideas that have evolved over time. You know, I've really approached it from building a very unique new game from the ground up. But another thing that makes it unique is that I also got the process. So I've actually been making videos here on YouTube and posting them every month for free throughout the entire 7-year development journey. So this video here is basically a making of. It's going back over as some of the video footage that I've recorded, as well as
watching everybody games, how to jumped out the porch. Let the game
what I had to do to overcome some of the obstacles. And ultimately you'll see how the game
So I looked at Tuesday.
think it's 4,000 reviews on Steam. It's very positive, right? Yeah, I think so. It's just that I don't know if people are going to take that. Fact number one is the full reviews are negative. And to get a very positive especially with like a fairly simple code that was not all about this. The basic code is super good and all that.
Dang street. I was just like you for years. I thought I had to make a game in its entirety before getting a team. There's actually 2 ways to make 6 figures before introducing your game. I've done this multiple. So check it out below if you want to go full time. Yeah, thanks for watching. I want to hear about this story. So the story is going like this. Because you're what I would call the 2010s. I don't know. Yeah. Well, how old are you? I'm 32. Yeah, so like, okay, so we're the same age. We're from the same place. I don't know what I started when
This.
Eventually went to a trade school in Utah, which is now closed. And it was kind of different from other schools because they weren't accredited. Like, you didn't get to teachers. Most
You're right there.
people like this was starting to school. It's basically most teachers in academia things like none of it.
We go! We go! Woo!
Travel has the power to awaken our senses.
Trade school.
Good job. We go. We so silly. We so silly. We
What was it like? I mean, you clearly wanted it to be life. So I got to figure out.
So I really like. I really like.
Good job.
What are you doing? You doing you? What you being bad? You want to get in trouble? You want to get in trouble? You want to get in trouble, big man?
There was, I know
house.
There's no rest to the top. It's constant motion. Imagine creating a fresh branded survey in as little as 30 seconds. Well, that's SurveyMonkey with a boost from a presents the spring.
Well, I saw it happen, and I told myself,
Now I'm thinking because I'm like some sleep or like
all the way up.
I like push my kids out of the crap.
Right? Yeah. When he walks in, he's 3 years old, he walks in the door, he's amazing. Sounds like Glimmer. He's gonna say, Daddy, show me something. Show me something. Really? Daddy, show me Glimmer. Show me Glimmer. And you're gonna say,
Hey, what's going on?
Too rough.
Chill out.
So egg.
It's gonna be some money. You get a certain income threshold or a minimum window.
Where you go to the bathroom? Come on, go to the bathroom.
Which sounds crazy. Everyone should know. What does he get to $100,000? Slide sounds so long. It doesn't seem long.
Well, not if you live in the West, like that, in the United States. Seriously, and especially now. I mean, it was more back then than it is now. But yeah, I mean, to make it, we made it 4 years before we moved into the front. Yeah. And we're so fortunate that we had it. It wasn't like dire like we had a house. It wasn't like that. It was like, hey, grandma offered, spare bedroom. Like that's a great big save for me. Like we're just tight here. Like we would have been fine. But I would have been fine. Basically, we had 4 years. Probably more than $130,000 because Jack was good. She had savings and stuff. But it was tight in the area. I should probably point out that if anyone watches the pretty short it seemed like a lot of people in the comments felt like since we named like our current house, they're assuming that we use plastic. But these things are pretty short-term contracts. And a lot of the money is actually spent after the game. We did a simultaneous launch, so we were able to keep so it was a relatively small amount of money expansion contract, and the vast majority was just
That is such an interesting adjective. Wow.
Well, sometimes I wish we lived in Poland or something.
There's actually some weird dentist. So, listen, I think I love trying to ground the audience into a different frame of thinking. Because they're hearing you right now and they're saying, I read a comment in your video, and I wonder if I'm not going to follow up with this. And if you don't want us to talk about this, we can cut it from there. Right? It said, so you're saying the secret to making movie videos is to last 5 years and have a genius designer. That was the top upvoted, one of the top.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I can't tell whether it's tongue-in-cheek, I can't tell whether it's completely negative, but I read this comment and I'm like, that is not fair at all. Because Danny has backbone and 99% of game devs don't. And I get angry because I'm like, if people would just, like, you have this drop, and you said it doesn't make any sense, it's a chip on your shoulder. And it pushed you through those 5 years. And maybe you were going with it, but for some reason you got to look at it, and you got to listen. And comments like this, they don't understand that that's what got you where you are, not your genius. Right? I'm sure she is, but it just, like, I mean, it's just, I don't know, does that frustrate you?
So, with YouTube comments, I have an interesting relationship with them because I do think a lot of people are joking, and they just sort of say things understand. Well, there are so many mean comments that you start seeing red everywhere. Like, you start wondering, everything's a mean comment. And yeah, that one could totally be read as like, just really dismissive comment, or they were just trying to make a joke. I think that one maybe trying to make a joke, but I've had enough comments that were like, sort of like that in a way, but not trying to make a joke. They're definitely trying to be negative.
What's your response to that? The comment is, so your secret is, the secret to the last 5 years is that, if the secret is to last 5 years, so what you're saying is have a bunch of money.
Right.
And have a genius designer.
Yeah.
What do you say to the people listening who don't have that? Do you agree with that comment?
Assuming a negative interpretation from it, I think if we're going to talk about what the secret is, yeah, it's not as if I give someone $130,000 to do this shit. And if that were true, obviously, I mean, everyone would basically have a money tree, right? Because if anyone could turn $130,000 into $2,000, then it would be, you know, publishers would be able to make like 20 issues a year or something. So there's something there. You know, I think people often underestimate, and I don't know why this is, people underestimate it and don't want to acknowledge the skill and experience as a factor, and especially with regard to indie games. Everyone's like, oh my god, you make things so risky, it's such a dice roll. It's like, but it's not a guy doing poker. Like, it's not like, you know, you just like shuffle up the deck and pull out your hand and let's see how good your game is. You know, it's not like that. If you have, you know, strong skills in certain things and leverage them, and you just market research and you have a reasonably good chance that a lot of people will like and you play your strengths. And yeah, like
I don't know what the numbers are for my game Crystal Tower, but it's somewhere around or more. I don't know what it is in terms of the expense. And
that's what I
no, so it's not nice. That's bad. It's very expensive to get, you know, borderline double shooters. And so what you accomplish is more than just, hey, I've got money. Hey, I've got money. What you did was first to even the willpower to save all that money or you said college student. To do that in and of itself is powerful. What's impressive is you saved up all that money and very simplistic ways. Yeah, so that you could accomplish your dream. Okay, so this 5-year period, you said it was 5 years making this game.
This is a video about a game that promised to bring back that childlike feeling of excitement, exploration, and discovery.
Everybody knows that the place to find a place is aquarium.com.
At Penn Station, your ears may hear, and your craving deep inside hears. Premium meats grilled with fresh sliced veggies, topped with cheese, and served melty hot, straight from the oven. You craving what I'm craving? Satisfy that craving with Penn Station's hot honey chicken with crispy onions.
This is a video about a game that promised to bring back that childlike feeling of excitement, exploration, and discovery. To nostalgically transport you back to the very first time that you found love for the hobby. You would travel across magical floating islands, meet cute animals, make friends, build your very own home, and embrace a cozy, warm adventure. But for this dream to exist, there was just one catch. 2020, an artist by the name of Lily appeared on the now popular crowdfunding website Kickstarter. Lily described her love of making cute things, as well as her excitement for launching her very first crowdfunding campaign. For now, she was asking for a modest goal of just $300 US. For this price, she would deliver cute Pokemon pins to the backers. For just $12 each, you can have Squirtle, Pikachu, Bulbasaur, or any of the other game designs. Fortunately, nobody informed Nintendo, or this story could have ended before it began. Instead, the likely infringing designs flew under the radar and managed to raise a respectable amount. The initial goal of $300 flew by, and Lily ended the month with $8,080. Not a bad payday for an independent artist. Seeing the success of this campaign, Lily continued her business of creating heavily inspired pins of popular, cozy, and cute topics. Heading to Kickstarter on an almost monthly basis to host 2 more campaigns. One asking for a newly increased goal of $400 for what Lily called Stardew Valley Pals, which this time managed to raise $6,573, and then another the next month for a now $700 campaign of yet more Pokemon pins, which raised $4,395. The total of this was almost $19,000 in just 4 months. Lily was creating a real business out of this. And on top of that, she was making the correct, intelligent business decision. Instead of continuing to use Kickstarter, which would take a fee for the services, she was building up a mailing list of users who were interested in her products. She was now going to start sending out notifications for new sets of pins, new designs from her very own website. That website was called fluffnest.com, a name you're going to hear a lot throughout the rest of this story. For the coming months, Fluffnest was doing great. Lily was continuing to create products based on popular intellectual property, selling pins of fan favourites like Studio Ghibli, and marketing to her small, dedicated audience via the Kickstarter updates for the previous projects. Not only that, but she was now growing an Instagram following as well. After months, Lily, who previously was assumed to be the lone operator of this business, took things to the next level. She revealed a man named David, who was called the organizer, and also Jen, who is, quote, just here to help. And now, just like the Kickstarter projects had escalated in the asking price, the company was escalating from pins to a new product called Puff Pals. But with this being an escalation in business, no longer just small pins for a solo artist, they went back to Kickstarter to reach the maximum amount of audience and funding. This launched on the 2nd of October 2020, but where previously they asked for hundreds of dollars and instead received thousands, this time the lovable little Puff Pals managed to pull in almost $171,000. This, as Kickstarters go, was both a monumental and organizational success. Lily had to date raised close to $200,000 off of her own creativity, passion, and mind for business. In under a year of kickstarting, she not only managed to raise money across 4 different projects, but she'd also fulfilled the previous 3 and had a lot of happy returning customers. If the story ended right here, it would be feel good. How a young artist turned her passion into an incredibly well-paid living, turned creativity into a thriving business, had thousands of fulfilled fans. The story doesn't end here. In fact, if this was a movie, this is when the dramatic music would kick in. From here, Lily and David enjoy the success. Maybe they enjoy it a little bit too much. But very soon, their entire life will be changed, just like the world around them.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as pandemic.
As the saying goes, when one door closes, another opens. With the pandemic closing borders globally, delaying shipping, logistics, and forcing people indoors, markets across the globe were impacted in dramatic ways. The Fluffnest business of designing, selling, and then fulfilling plushies relied largely on a supply chain that no longer functioned. Relying on supply from China at a time when shipping couldn't be guaranteed left many businesses in danger, including Puff Pals. But in keeping with the analogy of one door closing and another opening, While some markets, such as this, were experiencing financial hardships verging on collapse, other markets were seeing record levels of engagement and spending. With little else to do, locked indoors, people were turning to a beloved pastime, video games. Everybody was playing, even people that had no interest in the hobby previously, or maybe that had left it behind years ago. With a massive influx of newcomers looking for a casual entry point to the hobby, this created a perfect storm of circumstance for a specific game by the name of Animal Crossing. Releasing on March 20th of 2020, right as lockdowns were beginning in many countries, this game landed at the perfect time. Not only was it considered a better version of the game loved by millions previously, but it caught fire on social media as a somewhat cultural phenomenon during an antisocial crisis. People being locked away, no longer seeing friends, family, co-workers, and then Animal Crossing seemed to represent a social connection that many were now missing in their day-to-day life. People who'd never touched a video game console in their life were buying one just to play Animal Crossing. The game was everywhere, and due to this, the game sold over 44 million copies over the next 3 years, which was more than 3.5 times their most successful previous title. It was the success of Animal Crossing and other similar games that really plays a factor in today's story existing, and for the ambition or greed of Lily and David to reach the heights that you'll soon see. 2 years after Animal Crossing, the Fluff Nest account reappeared on a familiar website, Kickstarter. This time, however, it wasn't a $12 Pokemon pin, it wasn't a cute plushie, and it certainly wasn't a $300 goal. This time was a video game. Puff Powers Island Skies, launching on the 7th of April 2022, with a campaign that promised to deliver a full, multi-platform, cozy life sim game for the low price of $75,000. This page was incredibly well made and built with details that gave people a sense of professionalism, expertise, and ultimately, a sense of relief. What happened next was unexpected and incredibly lucrative. The previous success of the Puff Pals Plushies campaign, raising $170,000 from a goal of $10,000, looked like pennies in comparison. Within 6 days, the project had raised $500,000. A week later, a full $1 million. By the end of the 30-day campaign, the Fluff Nest team was sitting on a cool, crisp $2.5 million. Some people believed in this project so much that they handed over thousands of dollars each. Specifically, 23 people bought packages ranging from $1,000 to even $5,000 for a chance to meet the founders and have their hand in the creation of this great game. It's easy now, in retrospect, to point to the Puff Pals Kickstarter campaign and ask an obvious question. How did anybody expect the video game was going to be made with just a $75,000 goal? This, in context, is less than one full-time senior developer's salary in any moderate-sized American city for the year. But it's important to also remember that people are more likely to throw caution to the wind if you dangle a dream in front of them. They seem to miss the forest for the trees, and the campaign was incredibly well designed to make them do exactly that. The gameplay video was convincing enough for people to believe that this game already existed in some meaningful capacity. That maybe the developers just needed a little bit of help to get to where they were going, because clearly they'd already done a lot of work. And that since they already had done some of that work with an established studio shown on the Kickstarter page, surely this wasn't a huge risk, right? I mean, they even had a provably successful business behind it, one that much of the community had heard about, or even bought and received items from in the past. Unfortunately, as this video exists, you all know that things were not going to end up in sunshine and rainbows and cute little animals being collected in a cozy game for 42,000 people who gave money for it to exist. Instead, many backers will be introduced to the reality of an all-too-common Kickstarter nightmare, and this was just the beginning. The end of a Kickstarter must be a moment of shared excitement. The community comes together, they join the Discord, they celebrate. Wow, if they could finish the game for just $75,000, Imagine how much quicker and how much better it will be with $2.5 million. For David and Lily, I wonder if they shared that excitement. And if they did, how long did it last? Did reality ever come crashing down on their shoulders? Raising money had seemingly been easy, but now they needed to deliver a game with zero experience and already built on a lie. To begin with, Buff Pals followed the same trajectory as all Kickstarter games do. The fans were chill. In fact, the Puff Pal fans were probably the most chill I've ever seen when making these Kickstarter support videos. There was little to no drama, and even after a year without substantial updates or the playable alpha that was promised and was already delayed, the community were polite, they were patient, they were still excited. In fact, the only drama that was visible was the constantly growing fan base asking if it would be possible for them to buy in, to get more plushies, or to somehow gain late backer access to some of the exclusive Kickstarter rewards. The drama was, how can we give you more money because we love this thing so much? And publicly it looked like everything was going exactly according to plan, or at least that's what people thought anyway. Despite Fluffnest finishing the project funding on May 7th, 2022, raising over 3,000% more money than they initially asked for, there hadn't really been much in terms of visual progress. Sure, you can't build a video game overnight, but when you consider that the Kickstarter campaign launched with showing an existing video game and all of the Kickstarter tiers claiming a delivery date of January 2023 for alpha, nothing had really happened at this stage. In fact, nothing happened for a real long time. Sure, the Fluffnest team showed developer streams, creating music, showing art, and constantly encouraging this ever-growing community to get together on social platforms such as Discord. But there wasn't really substantial progress of the actual gameplay being shown. There was really only one thing that showed great progress, and that was the ability for the customers to hand over more money to Fluffnest, continuing to hand over their hard-earned cash to collect the animals that they thought they would one day be able to collect in the new Puff Pals Island Skies video game. Even before meaningful progress in the game had been shown, David and Lily opened a secret shop on June 30th, giving people a limited time ability to grab some of the Kickstarter exclusive plushies that would soon vanish from purchase forever, creating an element of FOMO, fear of missing out. But if anybody assumed that this was merely a distraction, the Fluffnest team made sure to mention the game was still coming along, and in fact, the alpha would be arriving within the next 3 months, somewhere around August or September of 2023. And they sort of kept their word here, because on September 20th, 2023, the Fluffnest team announced an alpha live stream. This will be the first time people got to see what their money had gone towards and the progress of the game. Inside Update 48, the team showed some downloadable wallpapers, discussed the foraging mechanic, and teased the alpha reveal stream coming in 2 days' time. That stream happened, and the game's alpha was finally given a release date, October 31st, 2023. The long, hard months of waiting were apparently coming to an end. Everybody would soon be able to see exactly what their money had gone towards, including the extra money being raised on the Fluffnest website through sales of plushies and other merchandise. Everybody was incredibly excited. Oh.
We're the world's most advanced program, built to control driver spend, managing travel expenses, protecting your AP. Our AI virtual assistant helps you identify spend abnormalities.
Babies don't ever stop. And behind them is an unstoppable Pampers 360 diaper with up to 100% leak-proof fills, because they're Pampers, behind every baby. Now with new Easy Up tabs.
Could you use up to $800? Find it at BioLife. Up to $800 is waiting for you. Just donate plasma, get paid for each donation the same day, then treat yourself and treat your friends. Schedule your appointment today.
Looks like Amazon understood the assignment. Welcome to Celebrity Substitute, where Amazon delivers everything our star substitutes need to help their students ace the day. Find it all on Amazon.
Or perhaps they shouldn't have been, because based on the feedback that was shared in this handy chart after the alpha release on November 17th, Users gave the game a scathing review for even basic elements of the experience. On a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being terrible, 7 being excellent, the majority of users scored the game's controls as a 3 or 4, which was high praise compared to their overwhelming negative scores of 1 and 2 for the camera controls. Now bear in mind that this happened in late 2023. The next months were updates to the alpha experience with updates titled Alpha 1.1, 1.2, and then 1.3. The next substantial update after this appeared on August 15th, 2024, where the Fluffness team announced that the, quote, final release was on track for 2025. As what's happening with funding, there was serious concerns from the public about what was happening with this behind the scenes. They replied, quote, the budget and funding for the project is stable and on track. But the community, as you can tell from screenshots here, were not really paying attention to the platitudes. They were no longer the cozy gamers that were just waiting for updates. They were now concerned, critical, and demanding answers. The tone had shifted dramatically, and people were worried that the project was spiraling into the same depths that many other Kickstarter games found themselves. Down, 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 until closure and no delivery of promised releases. This became incredibly clear with the update on February 7th, 2025 that promised impending release date for the Alpha 2. Almost all comments are bordering on overwhelming negativity, accusations that the team has, quote, taken the money and ran, that they've been spending years marketing their plushies to the community, enriching themselves further without intending to deliver the game, seemingly leading them on to milk the plushie side of the business. And if you think that was bad, well, it only got worse from here. Despite promising increasing frequency of communication and updates from the team, they were just getting slower. Little did they know this was going to be their last update before the curtain was lifted and the truth was revealed. Hi again, pals, the post began, but he continued the same as almost every update for the last few years. More delays, no dates given, just more images of a game nobody had played or seen meaningful updates to for an unreasonably long time. Does anybody here know of a way to file a legal complaint for fraud? People should raise this to their attorney generals and start a class action lawsuit against Puff Pals. Can I please have my refund? It's been 4 years and we only get screenshots. Lol. The comments were brutal, but there was still an illusion of hope. Right up until the next update, famously titled Project Update, arriving on May 21st, 2025. The Fluffness team exposed that they'd in fact been lying to the public, going all the way back to the beginning, showing the team on the Kickstarter page that all those years ago, stating they were developing the project in-house with their own employees working remotely across the globe. This was a lie. They had in fact outsourced to a studio from the very beginning. They allegedly paid the studio $1.1 million for the first year of development, with the rest going to taxes, the delivery of physical goods, and fees. They blamed this outsourced studio called Roommate for the delays, but instead decided to continue working with them. They apparently took out small business loans to supplement development, but ultimately ran out of funds after finding, quote, significant accounting irregularities in their financial statements. So this is where things shift. The game was, for all intents and purposes, dead. The Fluffness team were exposed as liars. They were no longer going to be communicating with the public, and so began the public's investigation. And what they found was a totally different version of events that was happening behind the scenes for years. People discovered that Fluffness was being sued. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not even 4. This company and the 2 main culprits who ran it, Lily and David, were involved in more lawsuits than the Puff Pals video games ever had version of their who took Fluffness to small claims court because he was owed over $11,000 of unpaid invoices. His journey was well documented on the Puff Pals subreddit, where he described the absolute financial collapse of his life due to this project and these people. They signed off on his work. They didn't pay. They made excuses. They promised impending payment. They didn't pay. He then had to go through a journey, trials and tribulations of serving the lawsuit to individuals who were trying their very best to hide so that they couldn't be served. The Fluffness creators, David and Lily, were nowhere to be found. The curtains at their home were closed. The door was never answered. Eventually, the judge had to just grant the ability to proceed without serving the documents because it was impossible. And on his day in court, no one from Fluffness showed up to defend themselves. This meant the contractor was awarded the full amount, though it's unlikely it will ever be paid. While the public was trying to figure out what exactly had happened, Lily and David were trying to control the damage in the Fluffness Discord server. And this is where things started to become absolutely unhinged.
Hello. Call me back one more time on business.
It was in this server that publicly verifiable facts or legal allegations were brought up, and where Lily, sometimes along with David, would contradict the situation, or according to a later lawsuit, say things that would come back to bite them. Almost everything from here on has been or will be heard in a courtroom, or the public finds out the exact truth. So going backwards a little in the story, so before the public were made aware of what many believe was the end of the scam, let's look at what Fluffness were claiming and what the later lawsuits now show instead. On February 27th, 2005, Fluffness wrote the following. There are currently no outstanding legal issues that could disrupt Angie's development or release. They then go on to explain that the lawsuit people had discovered from funding was due to a banking issue and had since been settled. That this was unrelated to the game's development and totally related only to the larger business entity that handled the plushie side.
Money, come here.
They then made claims that everything was fine, that they had taken steps to protect the game studio from the other ongoing legal or business disputes. That funding was, quote, never a concern. But we now know, looking back, that the reality was different. The only reason that they brought up late funding and the defaulted agreement was because merely days before the February 27th update, their community had discovered that lawsuit about failure to pay. And this is where they caught themselves in another lie. While attempting to salvage the company's reputation, potentially to continue making sales and operating the business of both plushies and the video game development, they were trying to claim transparency, addressing the concerns, talking about this lawsuit and how it was settled, how it wasn't a problem, just a simple banking error, easily remedied. But already at this time, there were other companies that were owed money, and one of these had not been settled. The reason that this likely wasn't mentioned in this update is because the public didn't know about it yet. A company called Funding Futures LLC had also given David, Lily, and Fluffness money. This was not alone.
Cash out, Zilla, Venmo. Go down with Venmo.
Funding Futures gave them $130,500 as part of an MCA, a merchant cash advance. They were basically purchasing the future receivables of the company. They signed the agreement on the 3rd of May 2024, and the lawsuit later claims that just 17 days later on May 20th, they broke the agreement. There were apparently continued payments made after this stage, but eventually those payments stopped, with just over $62,000 outstanding. So, re-examining the February 27th update, the funding was clearly not secure, and while they didn't specifically lie about the undefaulted financial agreement with Blade Funding, since the settlement did exist, they did in fact stop paying them pretty soon after. They then extended them a $200,000 loan on March 29, 2024. But less than 6 months later, on August 19, they simply stopped paying. After they filed a lawsuit that the public was then made aware of, they signed a settlement. But months later, on May 5th, 2025, they stopped paying again. It was 16 days after this that Fluffness made their final Kickstarter update we talked about earlier, where they left the end of the game ambiguous, that they were still moving ahead with development, this time as a solo developer in a completely new engine. On Discord, Lily could be seen defending David, claiming he's some kind of genius, that he has $5 million in the bank, that he could work at any big company he wanted and has lots of connections, that he would be working towards getting the game released and refunding people when needed. They claimed that the legal situation was still not concerning, despite 5 lawsuits against not only the company, but also against David and Lily personally, as they had guaranteed their release. David seems to consider that perhaps he's some kind of anime-level villain, and that posting in Discord about how he's managed to hide the money will prevent the court from finding it and awarding it to the parties that are owed. Ignoring the fact that he's now given evidence against himself by saying this, he also directly contradicts Lilly repeatedly when talking about the team size, as well as stating that they can, quote, fund production for a little less than 4 years. Realistically, the whole time that David and Lilly were saying this, they were in hiding. Multiple companies were trying to find them. People were attempting to serve them legal papers. Companies were being handed default judgments for tens of thousands of dollars simply because David, Lilly, and Fluffnest as an entity wouldn't show up to defend themselves or even respond to filings. On May 16, 2025, Blade Funding LLC was awarded $98,065. On June 25, 2025, Funding Futures was awarded $68,387. On July 21, 2025, the contractor who sued them in small claims court was awarded $11,535. American Express are still chasing their alleged $50,000 or more credit card balance, likely gaining massive amounts of interest in the meantime, which brings the total owed to well over $200,000, much of it ordered by a judge. But even this pales in comparison to the next and the biggest lawsuit. Roommate, the studio that David blamed publicly for the game's slow delivery, and that he never mentioned he'd even hired, let alone stopped paying, filed their own lawsuit on May 19th, 2025. The allegations were very serious. Breach of contract, fraud, and unjust enrichment. Not just that, but this whole lawsuit was a bombshell, answering a lot of the questions about the Puff Pals project that nobody even knew they needed to be asking. Roommate alleges that they were engaged in services of creating Puff Pals starting in 2022. So basically, right when this project was funded, when they got the $2.5 million, that's when they were engaged in services. Meaning the Kickstarter page showing the team was full of shit the whole time, and that there was never an internal studio working on delivering this game. The lawsuit continues by stating they didn't even sign an agreement to begin development of the game until August 16th, where they agreed to be paid $2.2 million for the first year of development. 1 year later, on August 21st, 2023, both parties re-signed a substantially identical agreement, stating that for another year of the studio to work on Puff Pals, they would be due a total of $3.4 million. From October 2023 until April 2024, David Pentland, CEO of Fluffnest, signed off on every single monthly report from Roommate, agreeing to all the work that was completed, signing off on all invoices for said work. However, rarely sending any payment. The lawsuit then calls into question where exactly funding had gone, because they said in May of 2023, Fluffnest claimed to have taken out a small business loan from Hanover Community Bank. That loan was given to David and the Fluffnest company to continue work on the game. David never informed the outsourced studio of any problems with funding, and by January 2024, he owed that studio $1.9 million. The game was now at a total standstill as early as January 2024. Despite the studio being owed an incredibly substantial sum of money, and David being completely unwilling to elaborate on the situation, the studio offered him a settlement. They would finish the game in exchange for a license to use it, the back-end revenue share, and the other sum to be paid back from game revenue upon release using a repayment plan. This seems like an incredibly generous offer, one David and whatever existed of the real Fluffnest team didn't deserve, but one that would see everybody repaid and perhaps the game be released for the tens of thousands of waiting fans that had funded the development.
Check. For what? Do you think I'm a rat? It's crazy. Get me out of here.
It's clean, boss.
Can you explain this clean ingredient stuff? It works without the
We got it.
I got hurt in a car wreck and I need a worker, but I don't have the money to hire one.
so you can keep your money in your pocket. It's just that easy.
Over $1 billion collected for our clients.
Unfortunately, the lawsuit then alleges that despite initial interest from David's side, he eventually claimed the SBA loan he took to continue financing the game, but didn't use to finance the game allegedly, would somehow prevent the settlement agreement. The lawsuit also alleges that at this time, David stopped even speaking to the bank who secured that loan and continued to withhold documentation that Roommate requested. David, Lily, and Fluffnest as an entity continued to operate publicly, lying to their customers, using the game that had been developed but not paid for to solicit continued contributions and specifically to try and sell more plushies. The whole time, the public had no idea that Roommate even existed, that anything was even wrong, or that anybody except Fluffnest's advertised internal team was involved at all. The lawsuit claims that when pressed on this matter, David declared that he would continue to frustrate efforts to collect funds by moving money out of the Fluffnest entity and declaring bankruptcy. Despite this, by March of 2025, Roommate was still continuing to push for settlement terms, with David and Fluffnest agreeing to those terms, but then refusing to sign when handed the documents, instead stating that they would finish the game themselves and ignore the $1.9 million they owed the studio. Interestingly, you can look at what David was saying publicly in February of 2025, where he announced on Kickstarter that they would be moving development from Unity's game engine to Unreal Engine, which was weird. This is almost like looking at a house you built out of brick for the last 3 years and saying, okay, now I'm going to rip it all down and start again because I like the idea of building it with wood this time. It makes absolutely no sense to swap game engine when you are multiple years into development, which makes it look like he was trying to restart development completely because he didn't have rights to use the stuff he owed millions of dollars for to remake, and that he somehow thought he would manage to convince the public to give him more money for more years despite delivering absolutely nothing by this stage. What makes this even crazier is that despite the lawsuit from Roommate initially naming just Fluffnest the business entity, eventually they had to amend it to include David as a defendant because he was making public proclamations he would attempt to bankrupt the company purposefully to hide assets, which is a pretty crazy thing to do in the public, especially when so many people are suing you and you owe everybody combined millions of dollars. This lawsuit is still ongoing, with an unfortunate trial date of 2027. And that's sort of where we are, where the story ends for now. The Puff Pals official Discord became a boneyard, with the community eventually migrating to their own server called Flockness, which is originally where I was invited back in June of 2025 when this story was sent to me and people asked me to look into it. I unfortunately got sidetracked for the better part of a year, kind of like the Puff Pals development, except without the alleged $5 million of stolen money. There is a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel for that community, since part of Roommate's lawsuit is they are asking for rights legally to the game, with hopes of recovering their sunk development costs by continuing to finish and then release Puff Pals. Though who knows what that would even look like. There is also a question of what will happen to David and Lily going forward, as they are on the hook for millions of dollars, a personal debt that will be almost impossible to escape. A completely deserved situation for people who lied from the very first minute of creating a Kickstarter they had absolutely no business creating. They took years of building an objectively successful business that was allowing for them to live comfortably, and decided that wasn't enough for them, that they wanted more, they needed to push further. They then raised money they had no business raising, for something they had no experience creating, capitalizing entirely on industry trends, over-leveraging their position, ruining that legitimate business, and ultimately stealing millions of dollars from unsuspecting fans that trusted them. Whether or not businesses involved in this are ever made whole and money is repaid to them or they're allowed to develop the game in order to fulfill those obligations is a question that we don't have the answers to. But what we can say is that the people who sold this dream did so without any ability to deliver and ultimately deceived fans who funded that vision. Unfortunately, an incredibly common story that began on Kickstarter and ended in court. You can find many other similar stories on my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.
If you're putting off selling your work because most platforms overcomplicate it, stop scrolling.
I realized that Etsy doesn't actually let me own my own shop. It cuts into my profits, and there's no real store customization to show off my brand and my personality.
Big Cartel just made sense. It's an independent e-commerce platform that actually supports small creators like me.
I honestly still can't believe how easy it is. All I had to do was pick a template, add my products, do some basic setup, and that was it. My store feels totally customized to my taste, but they made it super simple. And it was live before my morning coffee got cold.
So if you want to take control of your business, get signed up on Big Cartel. It's fast, it's simple, and you will definitely thank yourself at the end.
So as you know, the MMO's name has been changed to Starlight, and a lot of that name change information comes from here.
On May 6th, 2011, the first ever massively multiplayer online role-playing game was launched with funding on Kickstarter. And the interesting part about this project is that almost no one even remembers it existed, despite it being such an outlandish and weird story. The original project on May 6th was asking for a very small sum of money, just $50,000 and what they were claiming to be able to deliver for this money was a solar system-sized MMO game, which is the hardest genre of game to create, usually costing tens of millions of dollars, with 3 to 5 years development time from the largest companies out there that already have experience delivering on these huge games. But beyond the absurdity of that claim that they could deliver for such a small amount of money, this game had an even stranger component to it. They were backed by NASA, and stranger still, the government were involved somehow. Despite all this, the initial Kickstarter pitch was an utter failure. Unsurprisingly, since it was just a block of text, no images, not even a pitch video to try and raise $50,000, which was incredibly lazy and weird. Only a single backer decided it was a good idea, throwing in $5. Cal Sharif, the man behind the curtain, threw the Kickstarter again just a few days later on May 12, 2011, this time with a video and a few extra details.
Hello, Kickstarter. Hi. NASA asked us to make a video game, and we need your help. It's going to be about the solar system. It's going to be set in the year 2035. You're going to fly huge spaceships. You're going to land on Mars. And we need your help. Why? Because NASA awarded a commercial license. So we are actually going to do an experiment. We are going to see if we can build a game and make it popular enough that enough people will play it so that games like this exist forever.
Again, this failed, though this time reaching 53 backers and a couple $1,000. But as the saying goes, third time's the charm. August 12, 2011, the final and slightly more polished Kickstarter launched, this time reaching 962 backers and closing with over $47,000 in pledges, meaning the money was collected from the backers and handed out to Cal and his team. The assumption now being this NASA-backed space MMO was going to be created, and the prizes and rewards would be distributed to the backers depending on their level of financial pledge, which ranged all the way from a thank you for $5 to a special Mars buster jacket at a staggering $2,000. As for the pitch itself, well, this is where the confusion begins. You see, Cal Sharif wasn't proposing that they could create an entire MMO set in the vastness of space for just a measly $50,000. That would be silly, wouldn't it? Instead, he openly admits that if they are able to raise that $50,000, or hopefully more, the government will then match whatever is raised up to $700,000 for the tax credit, as well as $500,000 additional. Not only that, but the two companies that they were partnered with to produce the game were also awarded roughly $1 million to produce related content, meaning the project funding was considerably higher than what the backers would be able to throw into the kitty, and making it a slightly more realistic proposition, at least for a start. As for the game itself, well, you can see why it excited some people, especially all the way back then. You've got to remember this is 2011. There was no history of failed crowdfunded or Kickstarter games, let alone MMORPGs. Early access wasn't even a thing yet. People weren't jaded or informed on this topic. Adding the fact that NASA was written all over this thing, with their logo apparent all over the Kickstarter page, people obviously had high hopes. Because nothing like this existed, a scientifically accurate approach to a space game. The world's top scientists a phone call away from the team, available for consoles, phone and PC. You could engage with thousands of players in outer space, dozens of authentic missions, travel the solar system together, and not only play, but learn as you go. In fact, this was part of the pitch that involved NASA in the first place. They wanted to make learning fun, and what's more fun and interactive than video games? They wanted whoever they partnered with to make something that convinced kids and young adults to get into STEM-related fields, and perhaps they would then be the future scientists and real-life space explorers.
Hopefully, we're going to see a game when we're done that's got cutting-edge graphics, that's got very riveting gameplay, and at the same time is educational in the areas that NASA focuses on, which are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Which honestly, in the vacuum, doesn't sound like a terrible idea. But if you're all familiar with Kickstarter and RPGs on Kickstarter on my YouTube channel, you know that this story is only going to go downhill from here. Which means they made an incorrect decision in trusting who they were going to give this project to. But with that being the case, money was raised from the fans. The game presumably was now starting development, and it was just time to wait, which is exactly what people would do. Because the updates for this project were not exactly shining bright like a star in the night sky. In fact, it's difficult at all to even time the updates, because Cal Sharif posted very infrequently, sporadically, and inconsistently to the Kickstarter page. Not just that, but the website has since vanished, and the project was so unknown that little of its history exists online. Luckily enough, I think I've got enough to piece together the major developments, what little and incoherent they are. At first, things were understandably slow. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was a space MMO for $50,000. But even right at the very beginning, there was confusion over NASA's involvement. With NASA's logo all over things, such as t-shirts, articles started to circulate online publications like Wired that read, NASA raising funds on Kickstarter. Which is an incredible problem because NASA is not allowed to do stuff like that. This led to the branding being pulled from the page, presumably out of request in NASA in the first place, which led backers to speculate NASA would hold their support, which would have been a huge project. And honestly, at this time, many people probably didn't understand the convoluted relationship between NASA and London were being created, assuming NASA were directly involved somehow with funding or actual development, which wasn't really the case at all. All the funds were being raised directly by Cal and the companies he was working with, and NASA were not working on the game. They were just there to provide expertise. Cal immediately had to address these rumours in a Kickstarter comment section at the time, but actual news of the game's development was essentially zero for the first few months. Cal mostly posted thanking people, answering simple questions, and then began talking about funds they were raising and making Kickstarter partnerships with other companies, such as Hope Farm, a Canadian business focused on gamification and social online engagement, as well as a grant made apparently secured for something that sounds completely unrelated to the project. But Cal reassured that the money was going to directly fund the MMO people were now waiting for. So after this and for the next few months, things slowed down considerably, if that's even possible. Hackers were asking Cal directly for updates, and he was promising updates within the next week. But that week came and went, as well as that month, and the month after, with no such update. Cal did return to promise another big update, which involved NASA's approval 2 months after, but even a week later, it still didn't happen. As Tom Minton, a super backer of the project, pointed out, another promise had involved an update, showing frustration with Cal's over-promising and under-delivering on even basic communications.
Oh, that's how you do that.
Honestly, if they had gotten this update early, people would have been thoroughly confused because it was weird. Even with the information I have now in hindsight, it's just odd. So Cal required NASA to sign up on this apparently almost a month before. But all it was doing was talking about badges, not the animal, a badge, something you pin to your coat or whatever. What he described in the eventual release Kickstarter update on August 3rd, 2012, basically a year after everything had begun, sounds kind of like an NFT before NFTs were really a thing. You see, Mozilla had created an open source badge software to issue, manage, and display digital badges, which had information contained such as who got the badge, what did they get it for. Basically like an achievement you could get and show off on your profile, like on Steam or Xbox or whatever. The big news here between Cal and NASA, the big collaboration, that somehow related to him, I know people were waiting for, was that people could earn a badge he'd created for playing an entirely unrelated demo game set up to commemorate the Curiosity rover landing on Mars. You're probably as confused as I am about how this has anything to do with anything, especially the game on Kickstarter. But you know who was more confused than me at the time? The people who were giving him money for the project. People like Sean Williams, who asked precisely what we are asking right now. What does this have to do with anything? He also asked a few other important questions like, who works on the game and can we meet them? What do they do? What's their background? Why is there a bunch of news about partners and unrelated things, but nothing about the genre they hear or want to hear about? Cal responded to this directly, claiming the team was 14 strong and in development fully as of June 1st, as well as declaring they had 2 officers, one in Sunnyvale and one in Winnipeg, which is strange considering the company to date only had a couple $100,000, and 2 officers would be an incredible expense for such a business. But he did say one was mostly digital, whatever that means. He went on to clarify that the badges were important because they are using Mozilla OBI in the game. But that still doesn't answer why this was an update that anyone looking for information about the game would actually care about. Especially considering nobody had seen or heard anything about the game's development in the first place, such as it existing in any meaningful way. He ended this by basically saying he wouldn't give much away because other games do too much of that and he didn't want to fall into that trap. But then offered to have everyone meet the team via video. This didn't really address Sean Williams' concerns, and he responded stating, I don't need a video. Just a blog post would be sufficient, just to get in-depth information about the people involved. Who are they? What have they worked on before? Stuff like that. Unfortunately for Sean, Cal didn't think this was possible, and he did so in a very odd manner. I'll read it to you as a poem, but try not to cringe. Well, smile. That is possible, of course, but our sense of secrecy precludes it, which is a weird way to put things, especially with the smile part, but also because these people had given him money, and so far no one could even verify that there was a single line of code written or a single person being paid except Cal himself.
Come on, man, I gotta go. Come on.
Living with damage to your car is annoying every day. So trust the experts at Mako to restore your car to its original shine. Looking good, buddy. Don't live with the oven. Get Mako.
Morning, Pete. Coffee's on and your Uber's on its way.
Alexa, I've been thinking, maybe I should just go by Peter now?
Peter Davidson. Not bad.
Nah, sounds like I'm going to try and sell you an extended warranty.
How about Petey?
I know a dog named Petey.
Little P or Big D?
Oh, what about Double P?
You want to go by PP?
You know what? I think I'm just going to stick with Pete.
Pete. I like it.
I like you too.
Today, I'm gonna learn some iconic soccer skills.
Okay, I just boxes. Here we go. Sleeping. Because sleeping.
Hold on.
Marseille. Mara.
He did promise more stuff to come, including exciting release with more substance before the end of 2012. This was in late August, so this did really refuse to deliver on whatever this new exciting thing would be. The next month was basically people asking about backer rewards, simple things such as t-shirts, as well as another promise from Cal about getting people's info sorted next week. And then a month passes by, and somebody asks for another update, and Cal says, it'll be done soon. Again, it's unclear to me whether or not Cal was using some sort of space-age understanding of soon, because even 2 months later in January, the shirts still hadn't been mailed, and he was simply offering more promises that had previously been unkept. And this wasn't just about shirts, because the gameplay update was equally inundated with this idea of soon, as Topher DeMille asked for a time frame of game's release, as the project project was already over the estimated shipping date from the Kickstarter page, to which Cal responded discussing funding yet again, claiming to have made an additional $250,000 to the $50K they raised, and needing another $500K to operate from February 2013 until September 2013, which you might notice is seemingly answering a question that nobody asked. But he did also offer a release date for an early beta as soon as possible, a demo next month, MLG ball level in roughly March 2013, as well as an additional deliverable of the Apollo historical adventure in just 2 weeks' time. So it's important to note here that in December of 2012, Cal also updated the Kickstarter officially with news that they'd finally received federal funding for the project. If you remember, they were talking about early on they were going to secure a massive amount of money from a government scheme. Within this, he claimed that they'd received a whopping $750,000, meaning that the project now had close to or around $1 million to work with, which is of course a substantial increase over the initial $50,000 that the public gave it. This should have been great news to the backers for the project, but there were still obviously a bunch of questions that related to the communication so far. Some of the questions would have been, why was the MMO releasing so many different demos of non-MMO products instead of just one thing that was promised? Why was all of the communication about a bunch of little things and not about the actual game that people cared about? And directly regarding the communication, because for me, as somebody who's spent a considerable amount of time looking into the Kickstarter projects over the years and didn't deliver, there are weird little details here when you look into it that kind of stick out in your mind, such as the unnecessary and unrequested details of money in many responses to unrelated questions, as well as contradictory and vague comments by team members that no one had any evidence of even existing. For example, a previous comment I showed you that didn't have 14 numbers, but here a few months later he claims there were, quote, over 10, which is an odd way to refer to your team when you could just say the specific number as you had already previously done. So moving on from here with the additional massive amount of funding that should have obviously been pushing the project in the right direction, the next update was basically just more simple requests from the backers about the clothing that they were promised. 2 months after being previously told that they were about to ship, a question mark from the username Dept Night Slayer, a question mark that, when ignored, hopefully the same one both of which pointed out the inconsistencies, the useless information being posted that no one cared for or asked about, and the ultimate conclusion that they will be hoodwinked. This is nothing out of the ordinary. When you're multiple months or years into a Kickstarter where people have given money and they've seen nothing of real substance and the communication is so lackluster, of course people start asking these questions, have I been scammed? Some of the questions that you'll see around this stage are, of course, why do you keep saying things that are unrelated to the game? Why is information changing all the time? Why do promises keep being made and then broken or ignored for weeks or months? And where's the money? Cal, who had at this point ignored some of the questions, and especially the question mark regarding merch that's still not shipped, appeared the very same day and replied to these questions directly. But not talking about badges yet again, and no, not the idea of badges from Mozilla. He mentions that he was in Chicago talking about badges, as well as Starlight, which was the game's new name apparently. But the rest of the response was what I once did before, in so many ways that it's very difficult to tackle quickly. To start with, I have to take you back slightly from current date of March 18th, 2013 to October 4th, 2011, during the Kickstarter initial fundraise. Cal made this update post showing off an entirely unrelated game that was in production in his studio called Project Moonwalk. He opened up the post claiming that any backers of the MMO Kickstarter would be entered into a raffle, with 50 donators receiving the game for free. Which is fine, right? You can work on multiple games, that's not a problem. But when you go back to Cal's reply to the users asking if they could have access to any of the games that Cal had claimed was finished, he then seemed to suddenly remember and stumble into the idea that, yes, I should probably give you guys a copy of this game. We've clearly been spending time working on these last 2 years while we were funded to be making the show that you're waiting for. He promised to send copies of that game the same day to the backers, and then clarifies who the companies involved are, as well as finally gives a list of team members. But again, you're going to see inconsistencies here because he lists 8 to 10 people full-time since August, which he claimed in November of 2012 was over 10, and earlier in the year was 14. The numbers keep changing very drastically and don't seem to add up in any way. He then, again, extremely strangely says that
Tissues.
NASA
Tissues. 1, 2.
which is odd because
Whoa.
this was not a NASA project, was it? That would indicate
Hello.
NASA had a direct involvement with the project. And this was their project, because in the English language, NASA project would imply ownership by NASA. But this was a game being made by a private company, funded by investors, grants, tax credits, and the public.
Case.
Not NASA. In fact, they only bought NASA
Yes.
because they had access to employees and data as part of their agreement. It seemed like he was using this involvement with NASA as some kind of shield to deflect criticism, as well as it being used to let credit
Bro, quit closing it.
because why would it?
Tick.
NASA being involved is like a huge rubber stamp of approval. That being said, we did post a video of the stamp presumably showing progress of the upload, but unfortunately it's now been lost to the black hole of this game's history. The next update was more promises that things would be coming, including a post the very next day and every day until something is available to be downloaded by the backers, which would have been great communication. And for once Cal did deliver on this communicated promise. He did post the very next day, promising the game download to be sent out later, which we will be very surprised to know didn't happen. Instead, he made the very same promise the next day, and a few days later, finally people got access to the 2 different demo games that had been made, Project Moonwalk and what he also called Starlight Glide. Updates beyond this point include Death Knight Slayer repeatedly asking where his jersey is, which still hadn't been delivered by June 30th of 2013, another 3 months after he'd been told it would be this week. People were questioning whether or not the project was still live, which Cal jumped in to defend. But conveniently,
Excessive risky armor. Freshly destroyed.
it seemed like he was just ignoring this guy specifically. That is until more people started asking where their stuff was as well, pointing out that to date, the half a dozen awards they'd been promised, which included the video game, was yet to be delivered or even given a date of completion that hadn't been broken at this stage multiple times. Cal replied with his usual promises or excuses that he was simply too busy. 8 months of paperwork, lots of investment talks, lots of development happening, big things coming soon. Things that people had heard because of time. All that had happened was money changed hands, a few small demos had been sent out, and there was no MMO. Many people hadn't even received physical rewards at all. Which, let me remind you, to get shirts made is something even the laziest of YouTubers can do within a few days. The idea that you can receive $1 million, 50,000 of that from some people, you can't send them some t-shirts within a couple of years of getting the money, is simply ridiculous. A month later, in August of 2013, you'll be surprised that still no shirts, and you're going to wonder why I keep bringing this up. I do think it's important, especially when you consider these people are giving money for something so grand, so huge, a space MMO backed by NASA, right? But to this point, they've received basically nothing, and they were losing hope. Some people were simply asking about the shirts because they'd written off the idea of getting anything more. All they wanted was to get something small, just a shirt, just a jersey, some of the physical items that should be really easy to deliver for the money that had been raised. At that point, they could just forget it existed and move on, and just think, well, at least I got something, a little bit of memorabilia, a little bit of history. Maybe a reminder of why I should never back one week ever again. But Cal continued to post, week after week, month after month, promise after promise. And there's 2,000 words here of this script going over each of these promises every time. I'm just going to cut it for the sake of brevity and say nobody got anything they were promised at this point. Some of the backers decided to quit here, posting Kickstarter's terms of service for Cal to read, requiring him, based on the website, to deliver on promised rewards due to the legal terms he agreed to before launching the Kickstarter, which worked incredibly well because Cal responded within 20 minutes and asked for details saying that stuff had already been sent out and maybe they would next. Which is entirely possible, but other people were immediately replying saying they also hadn't received anything as well. And funnily enough, after being reminded about the Kickstarter and the service, people did start getting the rewards. Not entirely as promised, but good enough. Unfortunately for Dept Manslayer, he was one of the only ones, despite being the most persistent, that was still left waiting. And unfortunately, he continued to wait for months more. He wouldn't know because others were waiting, and Cal's responses started to look like something that would have been accused of AI if it had been posted in 2024. Such as classics like, "That delay was definitely a large cause for delay." Let's get back to the real meat and potatoes here. The video game, or lack thereof. The reason we just went on a tangent for probably too long on t-shirts and jerseys and physical rewards is that there was nothing else to focus on because nothing was happening with the project. But now, there is. Let's remind ourselves that this project was supposed to be an MMO. To date, people have played a 20-minute demo in an unrelated game. By December 20th, 2013, Cal was talking to the backers about posting that 20-minute demo on the App Store. Maybe Cal needed to be reminded that they backed an MMO, but now he was instead delivering 7 games that were completely unrelated to an MMO. And that is exactly what happened because of
My head is itchy.
Project Blackhawk Studios Incorporated released a game on Steam called Starlight Astronaut Rescue, complete with a developed in collaboration with NASA disclaimer. This game is about $1 to buy apparently, received 177 reviews, with 36% of them being positive, making it a mostly negative reception. This game is still available on Steam right now in late 2024, though it costs about $3, which is a crazy amount of inflation. But to clarify, this game on Steam was simply the demo backers had already received months ago, making it just a way for them to try and make some cash for what had already been developed, which is why they were launching at app stores and Steam, which isn't the worst thing in the world. You know, this is not like a big red flag or a major problem. If you've already made something, why not try and sell it? Well, a couple of reasons. One being your reputation of making something that's bad, that is hopefully negatively. And two, because it looks like you're spending time and money on things that wasn't the thing that was initially funded. But at least at this stage, you could say something was happening, because as we move forward, the next year was incredibly barren of information. So
Move to a labor-generous, firmer, wood, babies and skins, without drastic measures.
The future of weight loss is here with Godot and Hills. Lose up to 20% of your body weight, starting at just $149 a month. For the first time ever, get the FDA-approved Godot pill or pen through Hills. No insurance needed. Get prescribed
What they want to do? We gonna do. Want to drop? She gonna pop it. She want to drop? She gonna pop it off. Yeah. She got how they work on. Shut it, let it work on.
Except from May 15th, 2014, the backers only update for another closed beta test for Starlight G-Ball, which received a whopping 1 comment. The only thing other than that this entire year was an update on October 21st, 2014, which again introduced more questions than answers. Cal thanked people for their support before discussing what he called the Starlight series of games, which I'll remind you again, nobody funded a series of games, they funded a single space MMO in collaboration with NASA. He then went on to clarify that alpha testing for the MMO, which he now called Starlight Astronaut Academy, will be coming in the following weeks for closed alpha. So this is what, like, name change number 4? I kind of lost track. Either way, he strangely also since presumed because they paid for the game, especially because he was talking about selling the game on Steam Early Access. Either way, people did get access. Unfortunately, much of the documented history of this is completely missing because the website and everything just disappeared. I have to do a time skip this time to December of 2015, which was the most ridiculous update ever, if you can believe that, after following this video so far. Kal Sharif, the man who hadn't yet delivered on his previous Kickstarter, was launching a new one. This time, to send somebody to space. The first people heard of this was a Kickstarter post to the MMO backers, which, let me remind you, they'd still not gotten the thing that they paid for, so he was advertising to people who had not delivered on something with something else they need to give him money for that he probably wouldn't deliver again. It would be like you ordering a pizza, and then a year later the delivery driver coming to your door without a pizza and saying, oh, you want to buy a pizza from me? You're just not going to trust him, are you? Especially if he stood there without a pizza in his hand in the first place. The update he posted to those MMO backers reads, we're still hard at work on the alpha for Star Rangers, again, a different name, and we've turned the corner. Anyone who signed up will have their key, and a new group of developers will join us soon. We've got a new build-up today, and we're even developing for an HTC Vive VR headset. So to begin unpacking this, the new name, which doesn't include the fact that multiple demos by other names in other games that have gained over the years, they're also relying on new developers joining, raising the question, where were the other developers? But more importantly than that, they were now focusing money and resources on virtual reality support for a game that was in absolutely no shape foundationally to focus on anything but getting it ready for normal, enjoyable gameplay. But that's beside the point, because this update wasn't really to discuss the game, that was just there to basically lure people in who'd already given them money. Here's a brief section talking about the game you paid for, but here's the real thing I want you to read. The delusions and grandeur of this new Kickstarter. The Kickstarter that was asking for $100,000 to send somebody into space. They basically wanted people to pledge money, and then a random user from those pledges would be selected to participate in a space mission, again for $100,000. And the delusional part here isn't even just the cost, which is hilariously low for the time, considering this was in 2015. It honestly sounds like a vibrant threat when you see the graphic design. The page did also launch a short YouTube video titled Enjoy This Lust Inside the Astronaut Academy. But it's unfortunately lost, as I'm sure that would have been incredibly illuminating if this was the facility they claimed would be an appropriate venue for training and conducting space missions. And to be fair, maybe it was appropriate, but it was never going to happen, was it? Because nobody's giving you $100,000 to send somebody into space, especially when you... not delivered on the video game people wanted. Unfortunately, the Kickstarter page has now essentially been scrubbed, but the updates are still there. 10 confusing and increasingly worrying with 5 in a row that are just utterly bizarre. We're going into stealth mode. Thanks for watching. In terms of going quiet, our situation has changed and we hope you bear with us and join us at another time. More facts about the game, and then talks about the Star Rangers video game briefly. No PR to be released. Thank you for joining us. TBD. More announcements to be determined. Thank you for stopping in. And then the project is cancelled and everything vanishes. It's just very strange. And Cal at this stage was either doing some form of roleplay, or I don't really want to speculate on the alternative. With that being said, the announcement of failure of this new Kickstarter had yet again displayed to the original MMO backers that things were not going to plan. People were very angry, and they were letting Cal know about it. His response was that they needed to leave the updates, because the updates, of course, was saying that the game is now playable, which didn't address anything people were saying, because the game being now playable was irrelevant. The game was bad, and reading that the game was playable didn't address how bad it was, or any of the things people were saying. But now again, we time skip. The comment section of the Kickstarter is basically just more people claiming to have never received things they paid for, until, despite 0 comments or updates,
Thank you.
elsewhere that's lost to history. A new game appeared on Steam Early Access.
again.
Die.
This time, Star Rangers
Yeah, what?
XE. And guys, I'm sorry to say it, but this is where things get weird once more. This game is presumably the MMO that so far has cost over $1 million, mostly of government money and grants, as well as the Kickstarter pledges. But it's a mostly negative received co-op game that has the strangest marketing material you're ever going to witness in your life. Instead of a usual trailer, it opens with a promise that 10% of the early access sales are being saved for astronaut training. A dream that Cal had apparently not yet given up on. Presumably he still thought he could create a civilian-owned space program, this time with proceeds from the game sales.
Could we make the Star Rangers real? Could we make a real citizen science organization and send somebody into space? I think we can.
But judging from the reviews, of which there were a whopping 119, with only 29% that being positive, 10% of that money would struggle to send somebody to the local Walmart in a taxi, let alone to space. What's stranger still is that unlike regular Steam game descriptions, this one opens with Cal talking about having a conversation with Bill Nye the Science Guy while at NASA, because nothing sells a video game like an unnecessary self-mixer from a stranger talking about how they know Bill Nye. Not just that, but the entire Steam description completely contradicts everything that the Kickstarter backers have been told for the last 5 years. The Why Early Access section states that the game had been in development for 26 months, which would mean it had started in May of 2014, but the Kickstarter was funded in October 2011. It also states that the game had, quote, literally 21 developers working on the game in a peak of 15 or so 14 months ago, the Turbo Drive core team of 5, which doesn't even make sense as a sentence to me. I think he's saying that 21 different developers worked on it, but they only ever peaked at 15 total. But I'm not sure why he's saying literally, or why this is something you would include in the main body of Steam game description, which doesn't describe the game at all. Not just that, but he says that the game is already basically ready, with the only reason it's considered early alpha is because the tech tree needs tweaking, but that the core gameplay is complete, which would be worrying since the reception of the game was awful. Not just that, but you'll notice a distinct lack of description regarding the game. He just spends a bunch of time describing things he wants to do, like send their most active players to astronaut training, and eventually one of them to space. Which again, based on the delivery of this thing, sounds like a threat, a completely delusional. And also, strangely, at no point during its entire Steam page does it mention that this was crowdfunded on Kickstarter. It's like they've been completely forgotten, despite the fact that they were the ones who did kickstart the game. Following this, the obvious failure, of course, the project went dark. The only Kickstarter comments were a handful describing how it was an utter failure, and another handful claiming to have never received some or all of their rewards from the Kickstarter tier that they pledged. Cal did reply a few times, but it all stopped over 6 years ago. No more releases, no more patches for the game as far as I can tell, just totally abandoned. But still being sold on the Steam store just in case any lucky individual stumbles upon the game, I guess. So you might think that's the end. But with Kickstarter games, it never is. Cal Sharif appeared back on Kickstarter on September 6th, 2023, to post one last Bizarro Land update. First off, he thanks everyone for their support. Then he states the obvious: the game's dead and buried. Something that he probably should have done 6 years ago at the latest. But probably even before that, when he knew people weren't going to be getting the MMO they expected. However, it gets worse from here. He tells them that he learned loads of skills with the close to $1 million he managed to access through the project, and how that helped him a bunch with learning things, which he is now converting into more projects he's working on. Which obviously means he's had access to money somewhere, because he's releasing other games and programs such as a virtual reality training application and a space-themed VR game. Which is odd, because you have a space-themed VR game here that you abandoned years ago, and if you had the money, why wouldn't you do that game which you worked on for years allegedly, instead of starting from scratch, and then telling the people who funded you and helped you get the money to work on that VR game that you're now working on something else?
Whoa, this mission is taking me a minute.
States that if you somehow got access to, wait for it, $40 million, he would
portion of that to make this project become what he wanted it to be. Then once again thanks people for their contribution, which he says contributed to something meaningful, which I'm not sure what he's referring to, other than his own personal interest. But obviously people were unhappy with this. They started asking these questions like, why post this now, after so long abandoning the project of the game? Not a single word about it on Kickstarter for 6 years. And then here you are, to which Cal replies stating that people should play the game on Steam before speaking, and that if they share the game reviews, it would, quote, significantly elevate the game's visibility and success, and that, quote, to our knowledge, this is an opportunity that hasn't been fully utilised yet. It's just really, really weird. He also offers to send codes to people for his new game, but he's worried because gifted copies, positive reviews don't count towards the review score, which has a bunch of baked-in assumptions such as, if you give me a copy of this game, I'll positively review it. Generally, just all around an odd vibe to this entire thing. Even more so when you go through his company website, which lists all the projects that they've worked on over the years, going back to even Project Moonwalk. But the weird part is that unless it just doesn't show up on any of the browsers I've used, which I did try a few, even when using the filter for NASA or PC app, not a single demo or game related to the Kickstarter MMO is listed on this website. They have a news post from 2009 discussing their NASA MMO competition that they won, but the game or the demos are just nowhere to be found unless I somehow missed them. Now answer me this. Why have you spent 5 years working on something, received over $1 million for it, and worked with NASA on it, something we very sure you keep it off of your portfolio? When you keep a section about badges that you made with Mozilla Open badges in collaboration with NASA, something that you said directly contributed to the MMO. Either way, that seems to be the end of the space MMO saga. An entirely bizarre story from start to finish, and one that honestly set the pace for what to expect from the MMORPG genre of Kickstarter. This was the first project ever trying to make an MMO from Kickstarter crowdfunding, and it turned out similarly to all of the others. Massive question marks about what was happening at every step of the journey, constant responses, terrible, awful communication, questions from users of whether they were being taken for a ride, and a fully confusing figure at the centre of it all. The saga of Kickstarter MMOs continued on from here exactly how it began, sometimes even worse. If you want to see some of those videos, check out my channel. There'll be a playlist in the description. But that's your random internet history for today. Thanks for watching.
Alright, recruit. Take out those asteroids. Remember, they're just like giants.
Taylor, stop. Taylor.
The Star Rangers need you. We have more ships.
If you don't have a clear picture of your finances, you don't have a clear picture of anything. Before Relay, my business's financial setup looked like one big bucket. There's a big unknown. Can I take this money? What do I have?
Refresh the everyday with Mentos Go. Yes to fresh.
An open-world, massively multiplayer online role-playing game with complete freedom to do almost anything you can imagine at any time, and in first or third-person view. Live as an honest civilian, a criminal, a police officer, paramedic, firefighter, or one of several other in-depth careers. No levels, no skill grinding, just the actions you perform and knowledge of the role. Player-driven gameplay with player-driven economy, an enormous persistent world where every aspect is controlled by the players, for the players, gain money, rent property, grow businesses, coming soon to PC. This was the pitch for a Kickstarter game called Identity, all the way back on January 5th, 2015. The project managed to surpass their goal and go on to raise over 10 times the amount of money they claimed to need, all the while delivering almost nothing to the fans. Was this another scam Kickstarter, or did things just not go to plan? This is Kickstarter to court. Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform where anyone can show up, explain their project, their product, their idea, regardless of the viability, stage of development, or experience, and see if people will give them money to pursue it. The platform has been the subject of much scrutiny over the years, due to not only the prevalence of scams, but also delusional dreamers trying to make it big. No group has experienced these issues quite like the gamers. This is more so true for the MMORPG genre, which is notorious for being the most expensive and time-consuming to develop. Despite this being common knowledge, the early years of Kickstarter saw many of them raising millions of dollars, and almost none of them materialized at all. Games like Chronicles of Valyria found their start on Kickstarter, raising over $1 million before leaving the 30-day funding window, then continuing to take pledges independently to the tune of $8 million. Despite the massive amount of additional funding, there was never a product shipped, even 6 years later. The same goes for things like Camelot Unchained, with their $4.4 million and no game release after 9 years. And of course, the crowning jewel of Kickstarter, Starter, initially raising $2 million in late 2012, and going on to raise $450 million in the 10 years since, without a finished product on the immediate horizon, and this list goes on and on. But back in 2015, when Identity showed up, people were not aware of how these games were going to go. They didn't have this hindsight. They still had hope. And there are pros to backing games on Kickstarter. You are not relying on the big money to give you something new, innovative, and fun. Instead, putting money in the hands of passionate people just like you that might have fresh ideas. It's an alluring concept that saw people more willing to throw money down for what's been described as dream games. Identity is one such game. As an elevator pitch, it sounds like what you might have thought games would be a decade into the future, but we never quite got there. It sounds like a game that many people, me included, have always wanted. Think of Grand Theft Auto online mode, but with full persistence in a massive open world with everyone playing their roles, living a second life online. No loading screens, no pay to win, just freedom to do what you want in a world full of other players doing what they want. People were so excited by this prospect that 5 of them said, I will give you $5,000 each, and you will give me a promise that I will visit the office and spend half the day gaming with the team. Though there was no office, and the team consisted of only 2 people, information that was conveniently absent from the Kickstarter funding page. So let's go back to the start. We have an unknown game studio with unknown developers claiming to make a game that would change everything. A familiar concept when looking at Kickstarter in retrospect. The studio behind Identity was created in October of 2014 by a man named John Vandersver. 3 months later, he launched the Kickstarter asking for 150,000 Canadian dollars. When describing the risks and challenges of backing Identity, as is mandated by Kickstarter, John claimed to have invested lots of his own money and just needed help to get over the finish line. The implication being, the race had begun, they were already running, and the finish line was conceivable at this time. Should we meet our goal here on Kickstarter, we'll have everything we need to ensure that Identity gets completed. A very bold statement that exists to reassure backers. Your money is safe. If you trust me, I will deliver your dream game. If we get 150,000, you will get Identity. And he succeeded. 180,000 Canadian dollars was raised in the 30-day window. It was on. Identity was coming. Retrospectively, looking at the Kickstarter page from back then, what many people either missed or didn't pay any attention to was the message that immediately followed John's assurance of delivery. We need you. Identity is going to cost a lot more than 150,000 to produce. Our Kickstarter is a proof of concept to several investors, and with its success, we'll have the funding we need. Which means you are not buying into a sure thing, you are buying into a proof of concept to lure in the big money. And without that big money, Identity could not be delivered, in John's own words. Throughout the Kickstarter campaign's history, when it first arrived and then in the months following, John made several references to being in contact with, quote, big publishers or groups of investors that would back his vision. For example, in a post on January 6, 2015, the second day of their fundraise, when John states that they have been approached by some of the largest publishers in the industry, securing their future should it be necessary. This quote would, of course, lead the public to further assume that Identity, and by extension John, was a safe bet. It's only now that we can look back and put the pieces together to see what went wrong. Despite claiming the project was contingent on investors coming in to support the financial side of Asylum Entertainment, John would claim to, quote, set aside offers he was receiving so they could maintain complete control of the game's creative direction, or you could say the game's identity. The idea here, of course, being that while the public was still giving him money, he didn't really have to take money from somebody else and give them some of that equity, some of that ownership, and some of that say into the product he was making. So that is exactly what they did. They opened up a website where they continued to take in pledges and sold passports to the public that would allow them entry into this fantasy world when it was ready. In less than 2 years' time, according to the Kickstarter page, and so as the months ticked by, their budget increased. After the initial raise, things went relatively quiet in terms of major updates. After all, Rome was not built in a day. The only gameplay that had ever been seen by the public was that of the initial Kickstarter trailer, and it only contained a handful of stills from asset packs found online for a few $1,000s each on the Unreal Engine marketplace, as well as some concept art and a voiceover that explained each aspect of the game and what you would be doing once it was completed. The forums, as well as the other social media hubs during the initial year, could be described as a mixed bag. Most people were of course hopeful for the game, as this was really a dream come true. Some people were starting to get agitated by the lack of progress on display. A small number of people were simply firming their belief that something was off. The very first post on the Identity official forums using the keyword scam came from user QWER28 on March 19th, 2016. I don't have concerns. I know this is a scam. They made one slideshow video and start this project. Now everything that they are doing is sketches, many talks, programmed absolutely nothing. It's my belief as a content creator that sometimes being early is the same as being wrong. QWER28 was ahead of the curve on his accusations, and so his post was met with mockery. This is despite the fact other users were voicing less accusatory but similar sentiments throughout the thread. The major complaints at this time, just over the post-Kickstarter success and an additional $40,000 raised, was that there was zero progress shown. Few, if any, screenshots of anything in-game had been posted, and absolutely no gameplay footage released. There was no evidence that there was a game even being developed. This is especially concerning when looking at it within context. The Identity team had claimed closed beta would be available in December of 2016, and it was already March. Closed beta would be, quote, mostly complete with bug fixing and polishing remaining, meaning they had less than 9 months to put together an entire feature-complete game, and if things were going to plan, screenshots and gameplay at the stage should have been very simple to show, especially when the studio relies entirely on public perception to continue operation with the public's funding. The reasons given from John on the Identity forums as to why there wasn't any progress being shown was that they were so busy. They wore so many different hats, referring to the different roles each of them had to take on as it was a small business. They simply didn't have time to manage the public relations. Posting updates would take away precious time from development, and it wasn't a priority. This is why over the coming months, communication remained mostly surface level. Small teasers were released, whether by word or concept art. They made hints at upcoming milestones such as gameplay footage and trailers, as well as what they called the Town Square module. This would be the first playable experience of Identity. They intended to release the game in pieces to test each as they became available, gather feedback, and fix things as they go. The Town Square would allow players to create a character, explore the small area, access their Kickstarter rewards like apartments which they could then decorate, and meet friends to both enjoy a handful of interesting and fun things to do. In October of 2016, John penned an update to talk about their funding situation and the impending Town Square release, which would be coming in early 2017, which was late, but would bring with it an expansion of their funding in a very, very big way, which would speed up development drastically and bring about a full game release shortly after. In November of 2016, the unthinkable happened. They released a video titled Identity Insider Housing, the first ever look at gameplay since the Kickstarter almost 2 years prior.
This year has been perfectly natural. It's still not quite complete yet with interface and such, but even as it is, it's the most complete better than I've ever seen. And this a bookshelf is sort of a special container, so it can hold items like other things, but it really only holds books. And what's cool is when you put books in there, they're actually visible.
This was it, the proof of concept, the validation of so many people's expectations. The reception was incredibly positive with a like-to-dislike ratio of 4,000 to 61. The top comment reads simply, finally, great to hear from you guys, which does illustrate that the communication of the Silent Game had to this point been terrible, but people were happy that things were finally starting to turn around. Oh my god, this game looks like the best ever created. This game looks almost too good to be true. I really, really can't wait. But of course, this was not the change in the tide, and waiting is exactly what they would be doing. Waiting for another year, for even a glimpse of anything new. Often we ask the question, why would somebody do something in a certain way, ignoring the obvious answer as it's too convenient? With identity